Welcome to my channel with me, Sylviana. Today, I want to explain to you about the Renaissance period of literature English. If we talk about Renaissance period, we must go back in the late 15th century. The English Renaissance, an era of cultural revival and politic evolution, starting in the late 15th century and spilling into the revolutionary years of the 17th century, stands as an early summit of poetry achievement, the era in which the modern sense of English poetry began. You all must know who is William Shakespeare, right? The most famous poet and writer in English language even until now. Renaissance era is the era where we will learn about William Shakespeare. But of course, not only Shakespeare, there are other famous poets or writers. But before that, let's learn a little bit of Renaissance era its history. The English Renaissance can be hard to date precisely. It begins with the rise of the Tudor dynasty in year 1485 until 1603, and reaches its cultural summit during the 45 reigns of the final Tudor monarchs, the charismatic Queen Elizabeth I in 1558. This period extends into the reign of the Stuarts, King James I in year 1603 until 25, and perhaps that of Charles I in year 1625 until 49. This era filled with intense political tension and unspeakable from politics religious strife between Catholics and Protestants, especially Puritan sects that fought to reform the Church of England by removing any Catholic or Popish practice. As literacy increased and printing accelerated, the English language rose to a place of international prestige, and a distinctly English literature began to be graded from diverse cultural stands, Middle English poetry and medieval mystery plays, ballads, hymns, and popular songs, translation from classical literature and contemporary literature from the continent. The term Renaissance, deriving from the French for rebirth, is a name bestowed by 19th century thinkers who distinguished the era by its revivals, a renewed interest in ancient language, the recovery of antique manuscripts, and the return to the classical ideals underlying the era is defining intellectual movement. Renaissance humanities. Greek and Roman models renovated for modern purpose were especially crucial for poets defining or defending their art. In this era, pinnacle of literary criticism, Philip Sidney borrowed his chief terms and questions from Greek philosophers. Sidney mounted an entirely novel defense that flaunted a modern embrace of artifice and his spinning fantasy. Poets comply, because their allegorical and figurative invention never pretended to be real or true. We remember Sidney as an indisputable great poet and scholar of his time. To his contemporaries, however, he was far from a writer. First, he was a nobleman, a courtier, a patron, a horseman, a paragon of knightly valor who died from battle injuries at age 51. All Renaissance poets were amateurs selected with a modern understanding of professional career writers. Until late in the period, there was no system or royalties to reward publishing poetry, no author owned copyright or freedom of the press to protect it, and only a small, if growing, literary audience to read it. The first poet to collect his own work for publication was Ben Jonson. In 1616, the first to earn royalties was John Milton, who negotiated for earning from the first edition of Paradise Lost in 1667. With little way to live solely on their publications, poets who needed work made their living as playwrights, translators, essayists, scholars, secretaries, ambassadors, soldiers, politicians, physicians, composers, and clergymen, all of them that took the time away from writing poetry. Poets of all classes found support and shelter, or simply an audience in a handful of institutions. For Thomas Wyatt, Henry Howard, Sidney, and Walter Raleigh, the center of poetry was the royal court. Their noblemen and noblewomen, public servants, and charming societies alike practiced poetry as an exercise pastime, an imaginative competition that transformed the social arts of persuasion, diplomacy, and self-marking into displays of rhetorical dexterity and verbal playing. Writers of lower status gravitating to the court, helping to acquire the financial support of a patron, offered prestige, dedications, and commissioned works in exchange for favors, employment, or steady salaries. Another institution was the church. Several of the era's best poets, such as John Donne and George Herbert, were clergymen, and many others found their calling writing devotional poetry and adapting scripture, psalms, and prayers into vernacular English. Still, other poets found a home in London's first permanent public theatres. Built in the late 16th century, Christopher Marlowe, William Shakespeare, and Ben Jonson conducted audacious artistic experiments on stage in public entertainments of an unprecedentedly wide appeal. All these institutions pose immense barriers to women, even the most supremely educated and advantaged. Many of the previous best remembered women poets, like Maria Lena, Mary Ward, and Margaret Cavendish, come to prominence only in the 17th century. The poetry springing from these competing centers was specifically diverse. Just like our contemporary moment, it was relatively susceptible to fashions and trends. Cosmic sequence and appearance were all the rage, then others and shutters, then dramatic monologues and country house poems. In his defense, Shakespeare lists major poetic kinds that readers then and now can still recognize: pastoral, elegiac, satiric, comic, tragic, lyric, heroic. But there is no one Renaissance style. If some poets desire riddles with fluent sonic patterns, delightful ornaments, or one starting metaphor after the next, others adopt a blind style, achieving their judicious effects by withholding any rhetorical pyrotechnics, or by deftly hiding their rhetoric under an assuming surface. The shapes and size of a Renaissance poem ran the gamut from Ben Jonson's Springer, No Word Classic Epigrams, to Edmund Spenser's conventional epic The Fairy Queen by his death. Spenser had completed 6 of a promised 24 books and had still already produced one of the longest poems in the language. Far from a caveat of formal limitation or strictly cognitive rules, the Renaissance prized irreverent variation and brass-gamemanship. Even Glenford's own Afternoon-ended Cantonata, which is quite possibly the most openly appealing form in all of English poetry, was the result of a one-off experiment, a translation of British Aeneid by the young Earl of Surrey, a mainstay of English poetry and first drama ever since Glenford was, at the time of its creation, a quietly revolutionary essaying of distraction, removing the necessities of rhyme or stanza length. Glenfords were allowed poets and playwrights to narrate, meditate, and soliloquize at any length through capacious 5 length that approximate the duration of a single breath. Perhaps the most recognizable form in Renaissance poetry was the sonnet, an intertonic rhyme, 40-line poem derived from the Italian sonetto or little song, and perfected by the 14th century poet Petrarch. The first English sonnets were perfection, translation, and imitation by Watt and Surrey, who inaugurated an English tradition of love poems featuring idealistic but frustratingly distant beloveds, as speakers working through their dizzily mixed feelings in impassionate hyperbolic and often oxymoronic language. I fear and hope, I burn and freeze like ice. Writes Wirat in his translation of Paccas Rima 134. Love may be the central subject of sonnets and Renaissance poetry generally, but it comes in full deal of varieties: transient and transcendental, holy and forbidden, lustful and precarious and platonic, heterosexual and what we today call queer. Golden poets stretch the sonnets with traditionally thought bounds to encompass less traditional feelings. Devotional pity in John Donne is holy sonnets. Female desire in Lord Cordelia to ambulance political furor in John Milton's on the late massacre at Richmond. When does Renaissance poetry end? It's difficult to say precisely, in part because the lives of both and their stellar achievement don't yet conform to the era is political and social milestone. By Elizabeth's death, many of the greatest Elizabethan poets were waiting at all near their feet, and the centuries best-known schools of poets were Albert Coulson, Donne, George Herbert, Henry Hogan, and Marshall, and others become known as the metaphysical poets, after the unfavorable nickname given by the 18th century poet critic Samuel Johnson. What Johnson disliked about the metaphysical poets was precisely what modernists such as T.S. Eliot so admired, a blend of grandiose and hard, willfully unmusical speech rhythms and the outlandish extravagant wit. Developed metaphors that Johnson called concepts, in which the most heterogeneous ideas are welded by violence together. School was the popular poets, including Robert Herrick, Thomas Carroll, and Richard Lovelace, all were loyalists loyal to the king during the Civil War, and most were courtiers or otherwise linked to England's ruling classes. Harmonizing classical moderation and cosmopolitan with industrial process, the popular poets placed their gallant art to the organ poet playwright Ben Jonson. Some even labeled themselves Song of Ben. As the English Renaissance closes, it might treats religious and secular, classical and tropical, and read in the virtuosic early poems of John Milton, whose system teaching mind produced by these laws. It is an editorial over English language poetry for centuries to follow. Poets, poets, articles, and biblical titles almost percentage of poetry from Locke to Milton, and the Renaissance era that readers and poets have long prized as a golden age of poetic achievement in English. This introduction offers one sketch of that period's expresses literature and challenges adventures. It is for all legend about Renaissance period today. Thank you for watching and see you next time.